Hi everyone, I'm Kevin, and this is HFX by Bike, a YouTube channel all about getting around Halifax by bike. Normally I do spotlights on individual sets of bike infrastructure and longer trips to show them being chained together. I try to detail the good and bad parts of biking around town, but that approach misses out on something important: potential. Bike infrastructure doesn't have to have something wrong with it to fall short of what it could be. This is the first in a series of Let's Fix videos where I'll take one of the bike infrastructure sets I've covered in an earlier spotlight video and try to bring it closer to its potential. A lot of these hypothetical projects will be small scale and incremental in nature, the kind of thing that a team of enthusiastic volunteers could put together over the course of a weekend. Others will be much larger in scale and border on wish casting. The goal of the series is to imagine a better cycling network and to facilitate the discussion of what it would take to make it a reality. In a recent video, I did a spotlight on the Dunbrack Greenway, a 400-meter long multi-use path that facilitates access to the Chain of Lakes Trail from the suburban neighborhoods of Armdale and Spryfield. It's well designed and there weren't many negatives to highlight. The biggest issue with the Greenway is what it doesn't do. Someone wanting to commute by bike through the Armdale-Spryfield area and make use of the Greenway faces some pretty daunting geography. The entire area is a series of steep hills. This is exacerbated by local street design that only serves to direct users towards arterial roads, none of which are supported by bike infrastructure. As a result, our hypothetical commuter finds themselves with the choice of using dangerous major roadways or being relegated to climbing multiple steep hills along a hyper-indirect route. Comparatively, Dunbrack Street traverses the entire area along a mostly flat corridor. You might be wondering why, if Dunbrack Street is such a perfect cycling or walking route, bike commuters and pedestrians can't just use it as is. And that's because, in everything but name, Dunbrack Street is a highway. What's now called Dunbrack Street was previously called Northwest Arm Drive and functioned as a 4-lane highway. The design hasn't changed, and the posted speed limit for the relevant stretch of road is 80 kilometers per hour. There are no sidewalks for pedestrians at all. This is not a space that's safe or comfortable for anyone outside of a car. So, because of the flat direct route it makes available and the generally hostile environment for other road users, I think there's a good case to be made for extending the existing Dunbrack Greenway southward towards Old Sambro Road. Before I get into how I think that could work, let's outline the goals for the project. The first is that I want to provide better connections for the Armdale and Spryfield neighborhoods to the existing cycling network. The second is that I want to make pedestrian movement along Dunbrack safer, more convenient, and more comfortable. And finally, I want to provide better connections to Long Lake Provincial Park to the west of Dunbrack, for both cyclists and pedestrians. The area is quite large, so I'm going to break the whole thing up into sections between intersections. I think there are 3 obvious approaches to this, each with their own pros and cons. The first, which I'll call the Red Path, is a 3-meter wide barriered multi-use path that would run along the shoulder of the western side of Dunbrack. The major draw of this approach would be that there's no need to deal with intersections or the flow of traffic once on the western side of the street. A cyclist or pedestrian could move freely from end to end. There are several downsides to this path though. Notably, using it would require the user to cross Dunbrack twice to reach the part of the Greenway that connects to the Chain of Lakes Trail. Given the crossing times, that's a fairly major inconvenience. Additionally, while most of the western side of the street has a shoulder that's easily wide enough to support this kind of a path, there is a section west of Hale Pond that experiences a fairly major drop in elevation. There's a corresponding reduction in the size of the shoulder, and it might be challenging and/or expensive to engineer a path across this space. The second option would be the Gold Path, which would likewise be a 3-meter wide barrier-protected multi-use path running along the shoulder of Dunbrack, except this time on the eastern side. This would remove the need to routinely cross Dunbrack unless traveling specifically to Long Lake Provincial Park. Anyone moving along the Gold Path would have to cross several intersections between Dunbrack and adjoining local streets and minor collectors, but that's not really anything new. I'll talk more about how we can deal with the intersections a bit later on. The final option is the Blue Path, which would also be a 3-meter wide multi-use path. Instead of running along Dunbrack itself, it would use the existing walking and biking paths in the area. Notably, the southern portion of Hale Pond has a trail that connects between Walter Havel Drive and Osborne Street. On the other side of Osborne, there's a small footpath that is somewhat bikeable. Yes, I checked. but which redirects to an adjoining local street. I'm thinking that past this point, the blue path would probably just fold into the gold path in running along the eastern side of Dunbrack. An advantage of the blue path is that it uses existing trails for the first leg of the route. Additionally, there would be some comfort benefit for users for being some distance away from Dunbrack itself. There is one main disadvantage to this approach. The existing trails are not wide enough to support bidirectional movement or effectively share space between pedestrians and cyclists. Addressing this would require that they be widened and paved over. This would likely lead to some trees along the existing Hale Pond Trail being removed. Loss of amenities to the neighborhood aside, I think this would cause a lot of headaches in terms of actually getting anything built, and honestly, the existing trails are not that desirable relative to just building a separated path along Dunbrack itself. Existing trails are winding, hilly, and not very far removed from Dunbrack, and so you're not going to get a lot of benefit in terms of noise reduction from traffic. Moving south, the red and gold paths would continue down Dunbrack towards Old Samborough Road. Over the length of Dunbrack, the gold path would pass through 4 intersections, 1 with a local street and 3 with minor collectors. The intersections are, to varying degrees, designed to allow cars to maintain a high speed while moving to and from Dunbrack, and they're not great from either a cyclist or pedestrian perspective. Here's the intersection at Dunbrack and Osborne as an example. There are some ways that this could be made a bit more pedestrian friendly, namely by removing the slip lanes and giving cars a bit less freedom of movement through the intersection. This would make moving through it a bit safer and more comfortable for anyone not in a car. I'm not sure how on board the city would be with this kind of approach. Given the new medium-density housing developments coming online in the immediate area in the next couple of years, there may be a local constituency in favor of this kind of traffic calming at the intersections in the future. Of the 3 options, I tend to lean towards the gold path. It seems like it would be the easiest and cheapest to implement and accomplishes most of the goals I laid out in the start of the video. I think it would fall a bit short in terms of pedestrian comfort due to how loud the traffic can be on Dunbrack, but that's more of an issue with redesigning Dunbrack itself, and it's definitely outside the scope of expanding the Greenway. Dunbrack is basically a highway, and walking directly next to it is always kind of going to suck. Those are some approaches that I think could work to improve the existing Dunbrack Greenway. Let me know how you would improve on it, and what other parts of the city's bike infrastructure network I should try to fix next. As always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.